Welcome to Smart English Coach Podcast.
Let's improve your fluency together, one real conversation at a time.
Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this before you answer. When was the last time you did something that actually mattered to you? Not something you had to do, not something someone told you to do, but something that truly, genuinely mattered to you.
Wow, okay, we're jumping straight into the deep end today.
No warm-up, no small talk. We're going straight there.
I love it, but honestly, that question made me stop for a second. I started thinking, when was the last time?
Exactly. And that pause, that moment of silence, that's actually the whole point of today's episode. Because today, we're talking about something that affects every single one of us. Whether you're 22, 35, or 60. Whether you live in Brazil, Japan, Morocco, or anywhere in between.
We're talking about wasting your life.
We're talking about wasting your life. Or more specifically, how to stop doing it.
And before anyone clicks away thinking, oh no, this is going to be a lecture, it's not, I promise.
It's a real conversation between two people who have also made mistakes, wasted time, gone in circles, and had to figure things out the hard way.
So stick with us. This one might actually change something for you.
Okay, so Sarah, let's start with something practical. What do you think it actually means to waste your life? Because I feel like people throw that phrase around a lot, but it can mean very different things.
That's such a good point. I think a lot of people automatically think wasting your life means you didn't become famous or rich or successful by some big external standard, like you didn't start a company or win an award.
Right, and that's a very narrow definition.
Very narrow, because I think you can be incredibly successful, good salary, nice apartment, good reputation, and still feel like you're wasting your life.
100%. And actually, there's a phrase I love for this. It's called being busy but empty. You're running around, you have a full schedule, your calendar is packed, but at the end of the day, you lie down and feel nothing. No satisfaction, no meaning.
Oh, I've been there. I think most people have. And that feeling is honestly one of the loneliest feelings in the world, isn't it?
It really is. Because you look around and everyone seems to be doing fine, moving forward, checking boxes, and you're checking the same boxes, but something feels off.
Something feels off. That's the perfect way to put it.
So let me ask you, was there ever a specific moment in your life where you thought, okay, I need to change something. I'm going in the wrong direction?
Yes, absolutely. And I remember it clearly. I was about 26. I had a decent job. I was making money. My family was happy with my choices. But every Sunday evening, I would feel this wave of, I don't even know how to describe it, like dread, like a heavy feeling in my chest.
The Sunday dread. That's a very real thing.
It's so real. And I used to think this is just normal adult life. Everybody feels this way. But then I started talking to friends who genuinely loved what they were doing, and they didn't feel that way.
And that was your wake-up call.
That was my wake-up call, which, by the way, wake-up call is a great expression. It means something that suddenly makes you realize you need to change or take action, like an alarm that goes off in your mind or your life.
Great phrase. And those wake-up calls can come in many different forms, right? For some people, it's a health scare. For others, it's losing someone they love. For others, it's something quieter, just a slow, growing feeling that something needs to shift.
Exactly. And I think the dangerous thing is ignoring those signals, because your life is always sending you signals. The question is whether you're paying attention.
I love that. Your life is always sending you signals. And honestly, most people are too distracted to notice.
Which brings me to something I really want to talk about, distraction. Because I think distraction is one of the biggest ways people waste their lives today, and it's not entirely their fault.
Say more, because I think this is something a lot of listeners will really relate to.
Okay, so think about this. The average person spends, and this is a real statistic, somewhere between 4 to 7 hours a day on their phone. Social media, videos, scrolling, swiping, and individually, each moment seems harmless. I'll just watch one more video. I'll just check Instagram for a second.
Just 5 more minutes.
Just 5 more minutes, which is never 5 more minutes.
Never. It's never 5 minutes.
And the thing is, these platforms are designed to keep you hooked. It's not about willpower. It's literally designed by some of the smartest engineers in the world whose only job is to keep your attention.
It's called attention economy. Your attention is the product. These companies make money the longer they keep you looking at the screen.
Exactly. And so when we talk about wasting your life, we can't ignore this. Because if you're 30 years old and you've been spending 4 hours a day on your phone since you were 20, do the math. That's an enormous amount of time.
It's staggering when you actually calculate it. Do the math. Another great phrase, by the way. It means stop and think about the actual numbers. Don't just assume. Look at the reality.
And the reality is often uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable, but necessary, because you can't fix something you're not willing to look at honestly.
Okay, but I don't want this to become about guilt, because I think that's another trap. People realize they've been wasting time, and then they spiral into guilt and shame, which is also wasting time, just in a different way.
That's such a mature perspective, and I completely agree. Guilt without action is just suffering for no reason.
Right, it doesn't help anyone. The past is the past. You can't rewind it. What you can do is make different choices starting today. And that sounds simple, but it's actually quite powerful.
There's actually a quote I think about a lot. It goes something like, "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now."
Oh, I love that quote. It's so grounding because it removed the excuse of it's too late. It's never too late.
Almost never. And even when it is truly too late for one thing, it's rarely too late for the next thing.
So let's get into the practical side, because I know our listeners are smart people. They don't just want philosophy, they want real things they can actually do.
Yes, let's talk about that. And I want to start with something that sounds almost too simple. Ready?
Ready.
Know what you actually want.
That's it?
That's it. And I know it sounds obvious, but here's the thing. Most people genuinely don't know what they want. They know what they're supposed to want, what their parents want, what society expects, what looks good on paper. But when you strip all of that away and ask, what do I actually want from my life? Many people go completely blank.
That's actually kind of terrifying.
It is. And it's one of the main reasons people end up living someone else's life instead of their own.
Living someone else's life. That phrase hits hard.
It really does. And it's more common than you think. I had a friend, let's call him James, who spent 8 years studying and working in finance. Great career on paper, good money, his parents were proud. But he told me one night, very quietly over coffee, he said, "Michael, I don't even like money that much. I like making things. I like building things with my hands. I always have." And he became an engineer. Not a financial engineer, a real one. He designs furniture now, custom furniture.
And is he happy?
He makes less money, but he's the most energized person I know. He lights up when he talks about his work. And that energy, that aliveness, you can't fake it. You can't buy it.
That story is so powerful. And it reminds me of something. We often talk about finding your passion as if it's this one dramatic thing waiting to be discovered. But I think for most people, it's quieter than that.
Say more.
I mean, it's not always this big revelation. Sometimes it's just noticing, I feel more alive when I do this. It could be teaching or cooking or solving problems or writing or being outdoors. It doesn't have to be glamorous.
And it doesn't have to be your job either. That's another thing people get wrong. They think, I need to turn my passion into my career. But that's not always realistic. And it's not always necessary.
Right. Your passion might be painting, but you work as a teacher, and that's completely fine as long as you're making space in your life for painting, as long as you're not completely ignoring that part of yourself.
And that brings me to another way people waste their lives without realizing it. They keep saying someday.
Oh no, someday is a dangerous word.
Very dangerous. Someday I'll travel. Someday I'll learn that language. Someday I'll call my old friend. Someday I'll start taking care of my health.
Someday is basically a very polite way of saying never.
That's harsh. But honestly, yes. Because someday has no date. It has no commitment. It just floats there in the future, comfortable and vague.
And meanwhile, life is happening right now.
Right now. While we're waiting for someday, today becomes yesterday, and there are enough yesterdays, and suddenly you look up, and years have passed.
That's honestly one of the most sobering thoughts. Sobering, which means something that makes you see reality clearly, usually after being a bit too comfortable or distracted.
Great word for it. And I think the antidote, the solution to someday, is very simple. You replace it with a date.
A real date.
A real date. Not someday I'll start exercising. I'll start on Monday. Not someday I'll visit my parents. I'll book the ticket this weekend. You make it concrete.
Because vague goals produce vague results.
Exactly. And specific actions produce real change.
Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and it's helping your English, we'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us keep making content like this for you. And if you have a friend who's learning English, share this with them. Okay, back to it.
So we talked about distraction. We talked about not knowing what you want. We talked about someday. Let's talk about something that I think is really underestimated as a form of wasted life, and that's toxic relationships.
Oh, yes. We're going there?
We're going there because I think people can spend years, sometimes decades, in relationships, friendships, or environments that slowly drain them, and they don't even realize how much energy they're losing.
It's like a slow leak, isn't it? You don't notice it day by day, but eventually the tire's flat.
Perfect analogy, a slow leak. You're losing air, losing energy, losing confidence, losing motivation, but because it's gradual, you adapt. You think this is just normal.
And I think it's especially hard with family, because with a job or even a friend, you can say, this isn't working, I'm moving on. But with family, there's so much guilt.
Huge amounts of guilt and cultural pressure, depending on where you're from. In many cultures, questioning family dynamics is almost taboo.
Taboo meaning something that is forbidden or strongly disapproved of in a particular culture or society.
Exactly. And I'm not saying you have to cut people off dramatically. That's rarely the answer. But you do need to be honest with yourself about which relationships are building you and which ones are shrinking you.
Shrinking you, that's a powerful image. Like you become smaller around certain people. You hold back your opinions, you dull your personality, you stop dreaming out loud.
And then you wonder why you feel stuck. It's because the people around you have put you in a box, sometimes without even meaning to.
So what's the solution? Because again, I don't want this to be about cutting everyone off and becoming a lone wolf.
Right, that's not practical or healthy. The solution, I think, is being intentional about who gets your time and energy. You don't have infinite time. Every hour you spend with someone who drains you is an hour you're not spending with someone who energizes you.
And that's not selfish. That's actually responsible.
Completely responsible. You have to protect your energy. Think of it like money. You wouldn't just hand your money to anyone who asked. You'd be thoughtful about how you spend it.
Protect your energy. I love that. It sounds simple, but it's actually quite deep.
It is. And it connects to another thing I want to bring up, which is comparison. Comparing yourself to others.
Oh, the comparison trap. One of the greatest joy killers of our generation.
Especially in the social media age. Because now you're not just comparing yourself to your neighbors or colleagues. You're comparing yourself to everyone on the planet. All at once, all day long.
And the worst part? You're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel.
Yes, highlight reel, meaning you only see people's best moments, their vacation photos, their promotions, their happy family pictures. You don't see their anxiety, their struggles, their 3 a.m. worries.
Everyone has a 3 a.m. worry, by the way. No exceptions.
No exceptions. Absolutely none.
So when you compare yourself to someone's highlight reel, you're essentially comparing your whole reality, the messy, complicated human reality, to a curated fantasy.
And that is a game you will never win, because it's not a fair game. It was never meant to be fair.
So the solution?
Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today.
I've heard that before, but it never gets old, because it completely reframes the competition. The only real competition is with your past self.
Am I more patient than I was last year? Am I a better communicator? Am I healthier? Am I kinder? Am I learning more?
Those are the questions worth asking.
Those are the questions worth asking. Not why does she have a bigger apartment than me, or why did he get promoted before me?
Because those questions lead nowhere. They just breed resentment.
Exactly. And resentment is exhausting. It takes up so much mental space that could be used for something so much better.
Okay, let's take a second and recap some of the expressions we've used today, because I know our listeners are also here to pick up natural English, and we've dropped some great ones.
Good idea. So we've had busy but empty, looking productive but feeling no real satisfaction.
Wake-up call, something that makes you suddenly realize you need to change.
Do the math. Look at the real numbers instead of assumptions.
Someday as a dangerous word, a vague, non-committal way of avoiding action.
Slow leak, a gradual loss of something important that you don't notice until it's serious.
Highlight reel, the best, most polished version of someone's life that they choose to show publicly.
Protect your energy, being thoughtful and intentional about who and what you give your attention and time to.
Great list. And all of these are expressions you'd hear in natural English conversations, at work, with friends, in podcasts, in interviews.
And the best way to make them yours is to use them. Say them out loud, write them in a sentence. Try to use one of them today in a real conversation.
Okay, so we've talked about distraction, not knowing what you want, the someday trap, toxic relationships, comparison. What else do you think contributes to wasting a life?
Fear. I think fear is the invisible wall that keeps most people from actually living.
What kind of fear?
All kinds. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being different, fear of starting over, fear of not being good enough.
Fear of success, actually, which is real and people don't talk about it enough.
Very real, because success means change, and change means the unknown, and the unknown is terrifying to the human brain.
There's a saying I like, everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Classic. And it's a cliche, but cliches become cliches because they keep being true.
That's such a good point.
But here's what I want people to understand about fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite fear. You don't wait until you're not scared. You move while you are scared.
That's such an important distinction because I think many people are waiting to feel ready, and that feeling never fully comes.
Never fully. You'll never feel 100% ready for the big move, the new job, the difficult conversation, the creative project. At some point, you just have to begin. Imperfectly, messily, but you begin.
Done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. Every time. Because a finished imperfect thing exists in the world. A perfect unfinished thing exists only in your head.
And things in your head don't change anything.
They don't. The world is changed by people who do things, not by people who think about doing things.
Okay, I want to talk about one more thing, and I think this is really important, especially for younger listeners, and that's the question of purpose.
Go for it.
So a lot of people feel like they're wasting their life because they haven't found their purpose with a capital P, like this grand mission they're supposed to fulfill, and that pressure can actually be paralyzing.
Paralyzing, meaning it stops you from doing anything at all, like you're frozen.
Exactly, because if you're waiting for this big, clear, dramatic purpose to reveal itself, you could be waiting a long time, and meanwhile, you're doing nothing.
I think purpose is less of a destination and more of a direction.
Oh, I like that. Say more.
Meaning, you don't need to know the final answer. You just need to be pointed in roughly the right direction and start walking. As you walk, things become clearer. You discover more about yourself through action than through thinking.
That's so true. I learned more about what I wanted from life by trying things than by sitting and analyzing.
Exactly. And it's okay to try things and realize they're not for you. That's not failure. That's information.
That's not failure. That's information. I want to write that on a wall somewhere.
Please do. Because I think reframing failure as information completely changes how you approach risk and uncertainty.
Because if every attempt teaches you something, then you're never really losing. You're just learning differently.
And life rewards the people who keep going. Not necessarily the smartest or the most talented, but the ones who keep showing up.
Consistency over intensity, showing up every day, even when it's not exciting.
Even when it's boring, especially when it's boring. Because the exciting moments are easy. It's the boring Tuesday when no one is watching and you're tired and you don't feel like it. That's when real character is built.
I love that. The boring Tuesday when no one is watching. That's where the real work happens.
Always. All right, let's bring our listeners into the conversation now, because that's the whole point. We want you to think, to practice, to use your English actively. So here are some questions we'd love for you to think about. And if you feel brave, write your answers in the comments. First question. What is one thing you keep saying someday about? And why haven't you started yet?
Second question, who in your life gives you energy and who drains it? Have you thought about that before?
Third question. When was the last time you did something that made you feel truly alive? What was it?
And fourth, what's one small action you could take this week, not someday, this week, to move your life in a better direction?
Take a moment. Actually think about these, because the people who benefit most from conversations like this are not the ones who just listen. They're the ones who reflect and take action.
And your answers don't have to be perfect. Your English doesn't have to be perfect. Just write something. The act of writing it down makes it real.
Let's do one final review of some of the best expressions from today's conversation. These are all natural, everyday English phrases that will help you sound more fluent and confident.
Jump straight into the deep end. To start something difficult immediately without any preparation. Example, she didn't ease into the new job. She jumped straight into the deep end.
Busy but empty, having a full schedule but no real sense of meaning or satisfaction.
Wake-up call, an event or realization that motivates you to change something in your life.
Do the math, calculate or think carefully about the real numbers or facts of a situation.
Someday as a trap, using the word someday as a way to avoid committing to action.
Slow leak, a gradual, unnoticed loss of something important.
Highlight reel, the best, most positive version of someone's life that they show to others.
Protect your energy, consciously choosing where you direct your time and attention.
Paralyzing, so overwhelming or frightening that it stops you from taking action.
That's not failure, that's information. Reframing setbacks as learning experiences rather than defeats.
And finally, the boring Tuesday when no one is watching. The ordinary, unglamorous moments where real growth and character are built.
All right, we're coming to the end of today's conversation, and I just want to leave you with one final thought.
Go ahead.
Your life is not a rough draft. You don't get to revise it after you've lived it. The time you have right now, today, is real. It's the only time you actually have guaranteed.
And the people who look back on their lives with the least regret are not the ones who had the most success. They're the ones who lived honestly, who tried things, who loved people, who took chances, who stayed curious,
Who didn't wait for someday.
who didn't waste their Tuesdays.
Who didn't waste their Tuesdays, exactly.
So whatever it is you've been putting off, the dream, the conversation, the change, the beginning, consider this your little push.
Not a shove, a gentle push.
A friendly, encouraging push from two people who are also figuring it out.
Because honestly, aren't we all?
Aren't we all? Okay, now seriously, if you made it this far, we really appreciate you. It means you're committed to your English and to your growth, and that deserves to be acknowledged.
So please, hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know whose day or life it might change.
And we'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Really.
Take care. And remember, don't waste your Tuesdays.
Don't waste your Tuesdays.